Hi again, Risa here, back with another episode of Ask Risa. If you missed last week's episode, you can go to my profile and you can find it in the highlights under Ask Risa. Last week, we talked about the very first steps you should take after getting engaged, which are to pick a general location for your wedding, a country, city, state, and then a general time of year, maybe narrow it down to a season or a month, but probably not a specific date yet. So the next step is pretty much everybody's least favorite thing to deal with, and that is the budget. But you have to have a budget because it's the only way you can keep your spending in check. And the number one rule of planning a wedding is don't go into debt. And the best way to do that is to have a budget and to stick with it. The next logical question is, how do you create a budget? Basically, the top line is very easy. It's how much available money you have. How much money have you saved? How much money has your fiance saved? And how much money are either of your parents able to or willing to contribute to your wedding? Some parents have a wedding fund that they have saved for their children, and some parents don't have a wedding fund per se, but they do have some money that they are able to contribute. So that's a conversation you need to have with both sets of parents if it's something that makes you comfortable. And it's definitely, you want to frame it as are you able to contribute? Are you willing to contribute, and how much? Not, here's how much we need and this is what we expect you to give us, because that's not a very nice way to treat your parents. So once you know what that total dollar amount is, you can work on allocating it towards specific categories. One thing to keep in mind is that generally honeymoon expenses are not considered to be part of the wedding budget. And a lot of times the engagement ring and the wedding bands even are also not part of the official wedding budget. You can obviously put them in your wedding budget if you would like to, but if you go online and look for a wedding budget template, a lot of times those items aren't going to be in there. Something else to mention relative to parental contribution is just keep in mind that if your parents contribute money to the wedding, that means they also get to contribute their advice and opinions and possibly invite their own guests, which may be people that you don't necessarily know, but since your parents are paying for some of the wedding, it's obviously polite to let them have more of a say in the wedding. As I mentioned, you can just Google wedding budget template and you'll find tons of results and ways to do it. Most of the major wedding sites and magazines have their own style of doing this. I have a breakdown that I like to use, which I will screenshot on the next page after this video. Some budgets will be more detailed than others. So keep in mind, if you've got a line item for wedding attire, that covers the bride's dress, the bride's shoes, the bride's special undergarments, the bride's veil, the groom's tuxedo, the groom's shoes, tie, pocket square, accessories, potentially even hair and makeup for the bride could fall into that same category of attire. Sometimes there's a separate line item for beauty. So there's high level budget and then there's nitty gritty budget. And you don't want to forget about any of the nitty gritty details when you are thinking about the overall amount in your budget line item. Generally, the biggest expense, the biggest single line item in any budget is going to be the food and drink for the reception. So in my breakdown, I have 50% allocated to the site fee, catering, and bar bill for the reception. And that is a big chunk of your budget. Now, obviously, the number of guests you invite plays a large role in how much that total dollar amount is. So you have to think of these two things hand in hand. And next time, I will talk a little bit more about the guest list, because that's the final piece you need before you can actually start venue shopping.